again, like the management screencast, I wanted to contrast some of the terms from the curriculum with real life examples and uh, show you what's really going on in the world of human resources. So human resources, their job is to manage the people who work for the organization and maximize the performance of all the people who are working in the organization. It's just like you would want to have a factory running at peak efficiency, you would want the people of that organization to work as well as possible. And also, different companies can copy, the same factory design, they can buy the same machinery, they can use the same procedures, but what can really separate them is the people who work there. And that's why I think human resources is really important. So we'd want to understand their functions and a few of the key terms that are coming up here. So the first voice to listen to is going to be Jack Welch. He was the CEO of General Electric in the 80s and 90s and really grew that company to a big size. And he was going to talk about how even though he was running a multinational company, he still believes very strongly in the role of human resources.
HR is, without question, one of the number one and number two most important functions in a company. I happen to believe it's number one. Many others think finance is the key to success in a company. HR is the driving force behind what makes a winning team. We make the argument that the team that fields the best players wins. HR is involved in making sure we field the best players. That's their job. And their job is to sit in every meeting, be involved in every part of the business equation. They're not the health and happiness, picnics, benefits team. They're the development team, developing today's and tomorrow's leaders. And if you have an organization where HR is relegated to forms and benefits, you got the wrong game going. I like to use one analogy. If you were running a sports team, whether it be the New York Yankees, the Boston Red Sox, would you like to hang out with the head of player personnel or the team accountant? Who would help you build the best team to field? Not the team accountant. Same thing's true in business. You get yourself a great HR person, preferably one with multi-skills in manufacturing perhaps before, or in sales, who happens to be a people person, who understands that the role of the HR leader is to be both pastor and parent. Pastor in keeping secrets, and parent in telling it straight. You get that person who loves to see people grow, and you've got yourself a winner.
Basically, he's talking about, the accountant is important, but also human resources. Both are necessary to succeed. So human resources is going to recruit employees, select the best employees, train and develop them, assess how they're doing, assure that they're properly compensated, and help retain them. So recruiting employees is important. A bad hire can take a year to get out from under because you have to, go through the hiring process, pick someone, train them, and then if you find out that it's not working and then go through the process again. It can be expensive, it can take time, so recruiting and selecting employees is really important. So what's going to happen if someone leaves the company? They're going to determine the company need. Is there a need to replace the employee who's left? Can their duties be divided among the existing employees? So if it is necessary to replace them, they'll declare a vacancy, and they'll create the job description. They'll determine what does this position need, skills, experience, education, and they'll put that into the job description. Evaluate the labor market conditions, because you want to know, what's the market for actuaries right now? Well, they are in demand. So if you're going to hire an actuary, you're going to have to have a compensation package that's very competitive. You might have to do a bit of extra recruiting to get the best actuaries. Whereas if it's something that is not in demand, you might be able to lower your starting offer, your starting salary. So you would identify the labor market conditions to make sure that what you're proposing, what you're offering, is in line with what they can get in that neighborhood, in that community. Identify who could be a potential employee and personally approach them, or perhaps post an advertisement and get as many qualified candidates to apply. So here's a short clip of the Facebook recruitment video. This is posted to everyone just to encourage as many skilled employees to apply.
We really don't believe that you have to have a lot of experience to make a big difference. I mean, look at me, right? I mean, I started this from college, so be bold, right? I mean, don't just make the conventional decisions, but think about how can we do something in a different way than everyone else has? Because, what we're trying to do is different than what everyone else has done before.
There were 20 great photos products around in 2005 that had millions of dollars in cash, that had hundreds of features. And here we came along with a handful of people in a month and a half and built a product that boiled down and removed all of those features, except for one thing, which was tagging it, so that we organized the photos on the web around people and it completely changed the experience. That was just like that.
It's like out of your brain and your ideas and a small group of people comes something that touches the lives of hundreds of millions of real people every day.
No matter how big this company gets, it has this David versus Goliath sort of feeling. And I think that's what makes it fun to come into work every day.
Get out there and try something. And don't be afraid. There's lots of people to catch you, and you will never get criticized for trying something for the right reasons and making a mistake.
Most things at Facebook don't happen because it's mandated at a top level. It happens because there's a...
So you can see that how they're framing the company in a positive light, making it seem like an exciting atmosphere where it's okay to experiment and there are interesting projects, and encouraging highly qualified engineers to apply. So as they're applying, you're going to have to select who will get the ultimate position. So HR would maintain a database of candidates. Sometimes someone who is the finalist the previous time, you'll still keep in touch with them, and you might go back to them in the future. You can coordinate with executive search firms. Executive search firms have a list of candidates who they have developed, who they've helped evaluate, and they will place them with a company in exchange for a commission. So it can streamline the hiring process. And if you have a good working relationship with an executive search firm, they might place several people at that one firm. And you know that you're getting a reliable candidate. So you would evaluate resumes, likely using some technology to parse the resume for key terms. There might be a test of some sort. There could be a special application form. Not all jobs have the same application process. Some even retail these days still might use paper resumes and application forms. And you would conduct the interview, do a reference check, call up the reference, verify the experience, ask them for their comments, see what it was like, and then extend an offer to hire the new employee. And then you would, then drop a contract and arrange for them to start at a time that's convenient for the company and the employee. here's this little bit of a joke. Dilbert is a business cartoon, and just wanted to show you, just because some companies are much more rigorous than others. Um, Sometimes, companies don't take interviews as seriously. And here's an example of a company not taking an interview seriously, and you can see how it might not result in the best possible selection.
Alice, I want you to interview a job candidate. Let me know what you think.
Why did you leave your last job?
I punched my boss.
He's exactly what we need.
One of these donuts contains a memo which fires the recipient. This seemed like the most humane way to reduce headcount.
How was your donut?
The first two were great. The third was papery.
Alice, the woman in pink, she's a highly qualified engineer, and she's always frustrated by the boss's lack of qualifications. So, her picking someone because they punched their old boss isn't going to be the best selection for the company. Not that that would literally happen, but it's just an example of, if you don't take it seriously, if you don't take the time to interview people, you might not get the best candidate, and that can be very expensive. So training and development is the next step. So someone has to start working for the company, and you would train them. That's also called onboarding, getting them on board. And they might need special training for their job. Just help welcoming them, introducing them to the company procedures, who's who, how to get around, things like that. There could be some job shadowing where they follow another existing employee around for a period of time until they get started. You're probably going to be closely supervised those first few days. So initially there's training for new employees, but it doesn't stop after the first day. There's development that continues because everyone needs to be improving. You might start off as an entry-level employee, but you want to become a manager, so you need special training so that you can improve yourself and keep moving up that corporate ladder. So the Raptors are an example of a team that drafted Pascal Siakam. Fred VanVleet was undrafted. They played with the Raptors 905. Jama Mahalela was the coach at the time, and he's a very, very enthusiastic person who, really encouraged them to improve themselves. And they didn't have the highest draft picks, but because they invested in improvement, they were able to get a good team that eventually won the championship.
Let's talk a little bit about fundamentals and how Coach Casey and the Toronto Raptors install their offense, because I'm kind of curious, is it in the beginning a part method thing where you break it down into small parts, or are you doing 5-on-0 right from the beginning?
Yeah, we definitely started small. We started with three guys. We run primarily an open offense to start with. That was our base out of summer league, and then into the preseason. So we start with a three-man breakdown, simple spacing, and we had the fourth guy in, and then finally the fifth. And the fifth is that post, and we play him down on the dunker, and we run him dunker to dunker. Most of it's predicated on floor spots and basically, dribble penetration, and then pass them. Simple concepts, but the teaching is really particular. What do you do if you have an overload? And as you work through the season, what are the build-outs that you do out of that open offense?
Talk a little bit about the international players and the skills that they have. Are they coming in here with a real deficit, or are you seeing stuff where they're ready to go and they're ready to play?
Yeah, I think it's still learning. We're still sort of seeing what they have. In the initial first day here, I think you can see there's definitely some skill. There's no question there's some talented players. Some of them really good with the handle, some shooters as well, which normally you don't find in the younger kids, and then some size, and obviously size rules. So seeing some of the big kids that are mobile is good. So we're excited for the next few days to see what kind of potential we really have.
Some of your big guys have really been developing nicely. Is there a secret formula you have there with guys like Amir Johnson and Valanciunas, or are they just working hard?
Yeah, I mean, there's no secret. It is work. It's spending time in the gym, and it's working on the subtle things. I think that it's developing your game so that you can counter what defenses are doing against you. For JV, developing his left hand a bit more. For Amir, developing a secondary move. Moving his range out a few feet really adds difference. But the only way to do that is time. So the coaches work with them every single day on the basics, the things they need in the game. That's how we get them better.
Right, so you're not going to waste time with drills that don't apply to what they're going to do specifically in the offense.
So, you have to improve. I think we understand that for sports, for music, you have to practice to get better. Likewise, the same thing happens for workplace. And if you're not able to hire the best candidates right away, you can still create a program that improves their abilities so that a year or two down the line, they are performing just as well as the ones who maybe went to a more prestigious university. So then we have to assess employee performance, determine who's doing well. Try to avoid that once a year, meet with the boss type of a situation, because that's not going to give you an incomplete picture. If the boss is the only one evaluating, people are going to be guarded around the boss. They won't tell them the exact picture. People might tell on each other. If it's only once a year, people might really do a good job that last month before the evaluation. So the idea is that have more regular review. That would be a trend, to have more regular reviews. So instead of having a big 1 or 2 hour evaluation meeting once a year, perhaps take 15 minutes a month to meet with an employee, to have a 3-month evaluation instead. Although it is still, possible to do a 6-month or an annual evaluation. Also, you don't want to just be reliant on someone's personal opinion, whether they like someone or they don't like someone. You might not make the best judgments. So having measurable benchmarks such as sales, perhaps customer satisfaction rating, something where people can see where the gaps are and improve themselves. Businesses need to have key performance indicators where they judge whether they're on the right track or not. Same thing for employees, to have these, completing projects on time, good benchmarks that can be tracked. So a 360-degree assessment is a trend that encourages everyone to participate in the evaluation. So an employee would be evaluated by their managers, but also by their colleagues, because their peers would see them every day and see how they're doing all the time, and they'd be able to have lots of information. Maybe even people below them, like their reports, would evaluate them, because how people treat others, including those with less power, is important. So a 360-degree assessment encourages everyone to comment. And the goal with doing this is that it gets a more accurate assessment. Sometimes companies, they do what's called rank and yank. They encourage everyone to be ranked from number 1 to number 100, and then they fire the last 20%. That can be really stressful, and that can encourage unethical behavior where people will cheat. They'll only do what they know is on the evaluation. They'll do short-term goals at the expense of the long-term company health. So some companies have been known for Microsoft under Steve Ballmer would do this, and it led to everyone being very, very competitive, and different departments didn't want to work with each other because only so many people could receive a bonus, and it did not help the atmosphere. A 360-degree assessment can work if people are honest, if they're being candid. It won't work if people are lying, or they refuse to tell the truth because they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. If people are willing to be honest, and if people are willing to listen, it can be a good tool, but it's not for everyone. Here are some examples of how human resources helps with assessment at Google.
I asked her how she does it and where a lot of companies go wrong when it comes to human resources. I think it's very difficult. I think I'd be lying to you if I said, "Oh, it's easy. We can scale to 50,000 people and still be innovative and still be creative." No, you have to work at it. You definitely have to work at it. We do lots of things to make sure that we don't become bureaucratic by default. So one of the things is we look very, very carefully at the number of levels we have in the organisation. We really try to keep that tight and light. So every quarter or so we have what we call Bureaucracy Buster, which is basically anybody can write into our senior guys and say, look, this thing is driving me mad. It's slowing down. I can sense bureaucracy. I can sense lots of form filling. And we do our very, very best to take those ideas and eradicate the bureaucracy. So we work hard at it. And our senior guys put a lot of time into it.
When you said that you try to limit the number of layers so it doesn't become bureaucratic, what's that? Is there a magic number where you say if we go beyond this, we're in trouble?
We've toyed with having magic numbers, and we've found that that really doesn't work because some of our organisations are very, they're big, they're thousands of people, and some of our organisations are hundreds of people. So we've played with magic numbers and we've thrown them in the bin, and we've decided that really we just need to take more of a common sense view to this. But I think we'd be pretty uncomfortable if the number of layers got into double figures. That would feel very uncomfortable for us.
Oftentimes there's an issue in organizations. Someone's a great individual contributor, but it's a very different job to then manage the people that are doing that job you did so well. How do you spot those people who become great leaders and managers and make sure that there's a smooth transition?
So I think I've gone on record saying that my biggest worry at Google, my biggest difficulty at Google is managing talent. My problem is I hire brilliant people. So, 95, 99% of my people are high talent. They really, really are. The people here are good. So we don't use traditional methods. It would be wholly inappropriate when you have a talent pool such as Google has to have high potential programs, for example. So what we tend to do, and we do a lot of it, we encourage a great deal of rotation and mobility. So, for example, in the sales organisation, we've had roughly about 1,000 people move jobs over this last sort of 3 quarters. And they either move jobs permanently or they move jobs to go and see for a period of time if they'd like to work in X, Y, or Z area. We also bring people together into project teams working on cross-functional big company issues so that people can build skills and talents outside of their own sort of function and their own area of expertise. So we work very, very hard on giving very bright people additional skills, additional learning, and additional knowledge. And of course, we also have the normal promotion processes and all that stuff. We also spend an awful lot of time preparing people for management. I've often said that, I was a manager for about 15 years before I knew how to do it. And it's often when you get very, very good individual contributors who are used to doing it themselves, who are highly motivated, it's very hard for them to manage people because that's a very big transition. So we put lots of support in place. We have mentoring programs, all the stuff you would expect, a lot of leadership programs. We run what we call career gurus, where we give advice to would-be managers. We have lower expectations of managers when they're first in the job. We don't suddenly drop them in and say, right, we expect you to be able to do the same as someone who's been managing for 10 years. So we recognise very, very clearly that it's quite a difficult transition. And some people...
So Hornsby discusses a challenge. Say there's a team of engineers and you promote a good engineer to become the manager. They might not have the leadership skills to properly coordinate that team, and that can be a problem. So one thing that Google will do is job rotation. They'll let everyone do different types of positions so that if someone is promoted to be a manager, they have a good idea of all the different parts of the company and they've seen different perspectives. So job rotation is an idea of letting people work in different positions, perhaps every 6 months to a year, and then in 3 to 5 years' time, they have a wide perspective on the company, and it might help them be a manager. She also talks about expectations. So obviously, a new manager is not going to be judged by the same expectations as a seasoned manager because they have to learn and be trained on how to be a good manager. So compensation, that's tricky. Everyone really cares about this. Equity theory is the idea in motivation where it's actually not the number not the dollars you receive, but whether you perceive that it's fair and whether you perceive you're being treated equitably compared to your counterparts, your colleagues. So when people see other people's compensation, it can really set them off and make them feel as if they're not being treated fairly. And they might have been happy with that dollar amount before, but once they see what their friend got, it can make them unhappy. So you want to compensate the best employees the most, but you also want to keep it so that it is not a source of conflict. So compensation will include salary, a fixed amount of money, for example, an annual salary. Some people are paid by an hourly wage. They get paid, $50 an hour, $200 an hour, $14.25 an hour. Some people, like real estate agents, will be paid on commission, 2.5% for the house that's sold. Car dealers will get paid by commission. Salespeople, a percentage of what they sell is, their compensation. And if things go well for the company, there may be a bonus, a lump sum payment, at the end of the year to reward everyone for a job well done or for a successful project. So compensation would include salaries, bonuses, and benefits. Benefits are like our health care, our dental plan, our medical plan, our prescription plan, the ability, perhaps to have massage, the ability to, vacation days, things like that. It's important to understand that not everyone values all types of compensation equally. Not everyone, values money as much as the other person. Some people might like the ability to work from home every Friday. They'd be willing to work extended hours so that they get more time with their family on the weekend. Or for some people, they take less money so that they can be home for their kids. There's a little cartoon here sort of showing how compensation becomes like making a cake, and everyone's favorite cake or pie is slightly different. So there you get there's a little interlude to break up the lesson. Some people want vacation time, some people want a retirement plan, some people want health care, and some people want just an annual salary. So again, that compensation, it could be salary, it could be a bonus, it could be benefits. So employee turnover is critical, because if you're losing an employee, you have to replace them, you have to train them, you might not have someone totally ready. So it's important to reduce employee turnover. If people are leaving on a bad note, it's a sign that something's wrong with the company. The atmosphere is too tense, people are not enjoying themselves, they're not productive. If people have to be fired or asked to leave, it means that the selection process has been faulty. So you want to make sure that you keep good employees, and just generally, if you see that there's a lot of employee turnover, people leaving to work elsewhere, people leaving the company who need to be replaced, it's a sign that something might be wrong. There might be some conflict or something wrong with the processes that need to be addressed. So you certainly want to identify the top performers and make sure they stay with the company. Make sure you retain them. Try to figure out what they want out of the job, and keep them stimulated, keep them, compensate them, and keep them working for the company, because the best competitive advantage you can have is skilled, happy employees. This is a longer video. You can read a little bit more about how people stay motivated at work by watching this in the Google Classroom. Dan Ariely talks a lot about psychology, like what people are really thinking of. And it's not necessarily what you think. It's not necessarily just the dollars and cents. A lot of times what people are looking for at work is a meaningful task and the ability to feel, to feel the opportunity to feel appreciated.